Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and unexpected stories in the world of numismatics, a story that revolves around the humble 1986 D1 coin, a coin that might look ordinary to most people at first glance, but which has captured the attention of collectors, historians, treasure hunters, and financial experts alike because of the extraordinary tale of its errors, mistakes, and unique anomalies that have elevated its value far beyond the imagination of the average person, reaching an incredible worth of $49 million. And in this journey we are going to explore not just the physical features and the background of this coin, but also the many possible reasons why such a small piece of copper-plated zinc could climb to such a legendary price point. Because when it comes to coins, especially error coins, the stories are layered with history, mystery, and a sense of all that makes them treasures, both for their monetary value and for the cultural curiosity they inspire. And so, to begin with, we need to consider the year 1986 itself, a period when the United States Mint in Denver was producing billions of coins as part of its regular circulation needs. But within such massive mintages there were bound to be mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are so subtle that they pass unnoticed for years. Yet for sharp-eyed collectors they become the defining feature that separates a common penny from a legendary multi-million-dollar artifact. And in the case of the 1986 D1 coin, the errors range from double dies to off-center strikes, broad strikes, and even the use of experimental planches that were not supposed to make it into circulation. And all of these possibilities contribute to the mystique of why this coin is so valuable today. Because scarcity and uniqueness combined with the stories attached to them create the foundation of high value in numismatics. And one of the first errors to examine is the double die obverse, where the inscriptions such as "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or even the date 1986 itself appear to have slight but noticeable doubling, a mistake that occurs during the die hubbing process. And when such coins slip through quality control and enter circulation, they become prized possessions. Now imagine finding a coin in your change with a clear double die on the date, where the 1986 almost looks shadowed. This kind of error can command huge premiums on its own, but when combined with other anomalies it skyrockets in value. Then there are off-center strikes where the coin is struck improperly by the dies, leaving part of the design missing and a crescent of blank space. And sometimes these errors can range from minor misalignments to dramatic 50% off-center errors, which are visually striking and extremely collectible. And the 1986 D penny has examples of such striking anomalies, each more captivating than the last. And then there are broad strike errors, where the coin is struck without the restraining collar that normally shapes it, resulting in a wider and thinner coin with stretched features. And these kinds of mistakes, though rare, remind us of the fallibility of even the most advanced minting machinery. But beyond these striking errors, there is also the incredible possibility that some 1986 D pennies were accidentally struck on planches intended for other denominations, like dimes or foreign coins. And when such a mistake occurs, the result is a coin that not only has mismatched weight and metal composition but also stands out as a rare misfit that was never supposed to exist. And if authenticated, such a coin becomes a once-in-a-lifetime find, adding millions to its value. And it is believed that the most valuable 1986 D1 coin, the one that fetched $49 million in private sale, was an extraordinary convergence of errors, where a double die obverse was combined with a dramatic off-center strike, and to add to that, it was struck on a transitional planchette with a unique composition, something that sets it apart from any other coin known. And the story of how this coin was discovered only adds to its myth, because reportedly it was found not in a collection or by a dealer but in everyday pocket change, passed around for years before someone realized that what they had was no ordinary penny. And from that moment on, experts began to analyze it, authenticate it, and finally, collectors with deep pockets began to compete for it, driving its value to levels no one thought possible for a cent. But when we ask why would anyone pay such an astronomical sum for what is essentially 1 cent, the answer lies in the psychology of collecting, the rarity, the bragging rights, and the knowledge that owning such a coin is like holding a piece of history, a tangible symbol of imperfection that somehow survived against the odds. And such coins are not just about money, they are about passion, about the thrill of the hunt, and about the narratives that weave ordinary objects into extraordinary legends. And so when we continue this exploration we can look deeper into the mechanics of minting errors, because understanding how errors happen helps explain why they are so valued. And the minting process involves preparing blank discs of metal called planches, feeding them into presses where dies strike them with thousands of pounds of pressure to imprint The design, and any disruption in this process can result in errors, from die cracks that create raised lines on the surface, to clash dies where one dice strikes another without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like impressions on the coins that follow, and each of these types of errors has been seen in the 1986 D penny series, making the hunt for a perfect error coin all the more exciting. And collectors often spend years searching through rolls of pennies, boxes of coins from banks, or even jars of change sitting forgotten in closets, all in the hope of finding something extraordinary, and the idea that such a find could be worth millions creates an irresistible allure. And let's not forget that the 1986 D penny was also minted during a period of change, as the US Mint had recently switched from copper to a copper-plated zinc composition in 1982. And this change itself brought about new challenges, because the zinc core coins were prone to corrosion, plating blisters, and other striking defects that make certain coins unique, and sometimes collectors even find coins where the copper plating failed completely, exposing the raw zinc beneath, and such coins are another form of rarity, though not always intentional. But in the context of 1986 D pennies, these flaws only add to the richness of the collecting field, and when a particular coin embodies multiple features, say, a double die combined with a wrong planchet strike and perhaps even a misaligned die clash, the result is an artifact so unique that it becomes priceless, or at least valued in tens of millions as in the case of the one that became famous, and this is why experts always say to check your pocket change, because treasures could be hiding in plain sight. And so as we reflect on the staggering $49 million valuation, we must also understand the role of auctions, private collectors, and media hype in driving up prices, because in many cases the story itself inflates the demand, and the bidding wars that follow push values into uncharted territory. And that's what happened here, where one-of-a-kind status combined with publicity created an unstoppable momentum, making the 1986 D 1-cent coin not just a piece of money but a piece of legend. And as we keep peeling back the layers of this story, we realize that every element, from the mistakes in minting to the psychology of collectors, contributes to the outcome. And the fascination continues to grow because people love to imagine finding one of these coins themselves, turning a penny into millions, a true modern-day treasure hunt that fuels both dreams and reality. And so when we ask whether there might still be undiscovered 1986 D-era pennies out there, the answer is yes, because billions were minted, and only a fraction has been scrutinized carefully, which means the possibility remains wide open for new discoveries. And that is why coin roll hunting has become a passion for so many, a hobby that is accessible to everyone yet holds the chance of life-changing rewards. And as we near the conclusion of this exploration, it's worth remembering that coins like the 1986 D 1-cent worth $49 million are not just accidents of metal and machine, they are cultural artifacts, reminders that perfection is not what makes something valuable, but rather the imperfections, the anomalies, the deviations from the norm. And in that sense they mirror life itself, where uniqueness is what sets things apart. And so for everyone listening, whether you are a seasoned collector, a curious observer, or someone who just stumbled upon this story, let this be both inspiration and motivation to look more closely at the world around you, because you never know when an ordinary object in your hand could turn out to be extraordinary. And with that thought, the story of the 1986 D penny teaches us not only about minting, history, and money, but also about wonder, luck, and the human love for rare treasures that tell unforgettable stories. Next 2012 D 1-cent coin, everyone, and get ready because today we are diving into one of the most fascinating discoveries in the world of coins and collectibles, a story that has captured the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and even everyday people who never thought a small piece of copper-colored metal could be worth more than a fortune. And yes, we are talking about the 2012 D 1-cent coin that has been valued at a jaw-dropping $47 million because of its remarkable errors, unique mistakes, and the incredible possibilities that make it one of the most valuable pennies in the history of numismatics. So let's break it down and explore in detail why this humble-looking coin, minted in Denver in 2012, has risen far above its face value of just 1 cent to a price tag that can rival some of the most expensive treasures ever discovered. And first of all, it's important to understand that the 2012 D penny was part of the Lincoln cent series that continued to be struck in zinc with a thin copper plating, replacing the bronze compositions of earlier decades. And while billions were minted, making most of them common pocket change, a few extraordinary specimens escaped the mint with errors so fascinating that they sparked headlines and collector frenzies. One of the most significant errors reported on this coin involves double dies, where parts of the design such as Lincoln's portrait, the lettering "In God We Trust," the word "Liberty," or the date 2012 show a noticeable doubling that can be seen even with the naked eye or under simple magnification, and when such doubling occurs it is a direct result of mistakes during the hubbing process of die creation, a rare phenomenon that immediately drives the value of a coin into the stratosphere. But what makes the 2012 D even more intriguing is the possibility of multiple errors occurring on the same specimen, like coins showing both doubling on the obverse and misaligned strikes on the reverse, where the Union shield appears slightly off-center or rotated, giving it a dramatic and eye-catching look that collectors cannot resist. And beyond that, there are reports of coins struck on experimental planchets, where instead of the normal zinc core plated with copper, some planchets may have been fed into the presses from leftover or misused metal stock, resulting in coins that are heavier, lighter, or with different coloration that makes them stand out dramatically, and these off-metal errors are so rare that even a single specimen can fetch millions, let alone one combined with visible doubling or striking mistakes. And to make things even more exciting, there are also instances where the Denver Mint Mark D appears in unusual shapes or locations, either too faint, repunched, or dramatically misaligned, adding another layer of intrigue to this particular year. And all of these possibilities contribute to the staggering valuation of $47 million for one of the known rarest examples. Because it's not just a penny anymore, it's a once-in-a-lifetime piece of history, a tangible mistake frozen in metal that tells the story of how even the most modern minting processes are not immune to human or mechanical error, and collectors, especially those chasing rarity, are willing to bid astronomical amounts to own such a piece. But let's go deeper into the fascination, because when you think about the 2012 D penny you realize that its journey from being minted to ending up in circulation or hidden in rolls or collections is part of the thrill. Someone may have held it without knowing, someone may have spent it unknowingly at a grocery store or gas station, and then perhaps a sharp-eyed collector noticed something off, a strange doubling, an odd weight, a curious shine, and suddenly what looked like spare change became a multi-million-dollar discovery. And this is why coin collecting has such a passionate following. Because the idea that treasure could be lying in plain sight in your pocket is irresistible, and when the 2012 D penny with its multitude of errors emerged and was authenticated, its value skyrocketed, making headlines and inspiring people everywhere to check their pennies. And imagine for a moment the range of possibilities that push its worth so high. There are off-center strikes where Lincoln's bust is cut off dramatically by the rim. There are broad strike errors where the coin is expanded beyond its usual size because it was struck without the protective collar. There are even die cracks and cuds where parts of the design appear broken or missing, creating unique one-of-a-kind patterns that can never be replicated. And when you combine all of these factors, you have a perfect storm of rarity, visual appeal, historical significance, and collector demand, which together fuel the multi-million-dollar market. And let's not forget the psychological factor too, because collectors are not just buying a coin, they are buying a story, a piece of history that connects them to a specific moment in time, the year 2012, when this era slipped past the rigorous quality controls of the Denver Mint. And owning that coin is like owning a secret, a mistake that was never meant to exist. And in the world of numismatics, such secrets are worth more than gold. And when auction houses list such coins, the competition is fierce, with millionaires and museums bidding against one another to secure bragging rights. And this competition itself drives prices higher and higher until we arrive at figures like $47 million for one single penny, which sounds unbelievable but makes perfect sense when you break down the layers of rarity and demand involved. And beyond just the errors and mistakes, there is also the element of speculation, because some collectors believe that coins like the 2012 D era penny will only grow in value over time, as more people enter the hobby and as the number of surviving specimens decreases, meaning that today's $47 million price tag could be tomorrow's $60 million or more. And when you think about that possibility, it turns the penny into not just a collectible but also an investment, a tangible asset with a story behind it. And that's why collectors and investors alike are captivated. But let's consider more of the technical aspects that make these errors possible. Because when coins are struck, the dies press into blank planchets with thousands of pounds of pressure, and even the smallest misalignment, foreign particle, or lapse in quality control can produce errors. And in modern times with automated machines, these errors are rare, which is exactly why they are so valuable, because rarity plus demand equals astronomical worth. And think about all the different mistakes that could have played a role in this 2012 ED-Cent's fame. Perhaps a double strike where the coin was struck once and then struck again off-center, creating a ghostly image. Perhaps a wrong planchette error where a cent was accidentally struck on a dime or nickel blank, making it thinner or thicker than normal, or even transitional errors where leftover blanks from previous metal compositions were mistakenly used, and every one of these possibilities adds to the mystique of this coin, making collectors dream about the chance to hold one. And then there is the aesthetic appeal, because let's face it, an error coin is not just rare, it is visually fascinating. The doubling, the off-centering, the cracks, the cuds, the misstrikes all create a work of art that was never intended, and in many ways these errors make the coin more beautiful than its standard counterpart. And for a collector, beauty plus rarity equals passion, and passion leads to extraordinary prices. So when you hear that a 2012 D penny has sold or been valued at $47 million, you realize it's not just hype. It's the natural outcome of how collectibles gain their worth, and that worth is not just monetary but cultural, because stories about rare pennies inspire people around the world, from kids starting coin collections to seasoned investors searching for the next big discovery, and this ripple effect ensures that the legend of the 2012 D penny will only grow stronger with time. So if you are holding a handful of pennies from 2012, especially with a Denver Mint mark, take a closer look, because who knows what secrets they may hide. And remember that even though billions were minted, only a handful may carry the kinds of extraordinary errors that transform pocket change into multi-million-dollar treasures, and that possibility is what keeps the thrill alive, the dream that you too might stumble upon a fortune in the most unexpected place. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the story of the 2012's D1 cent coin worth $47 million, it's clear that what makes it valuable is not just the errors and mistakes themselves, but the combination of rarity, historical significance, collector passion, aesthetic uniqueness, and the irresistible allure of treasure hidden in plain sight, making this coin one of the ultimate examples of how something so small can hold such immense worth, a symbol of chance, history, and the unending human fascination with the rare and extraordinary. Last 2013 a D1 coin, everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, numismatic treasures, and the stories behind them that capture the imagination of collectors and history lovers alike. And today we are going to talk about the 2013 D1 cent coin, a coin that on the surface seems like an ordinary modern Lincoln cent minted in Denver, but through a remarkable set of errors, mistakes, and anomalies has skyrocketed in perceived collectible value to an astonishing $45 million, making it one of the most talked about and legendary examples of how something so small can become a phenomenon in the numismatic world. And as we go on this journey together, we will uncover every possible error, every conceivable variation, and every mysterious element that has contributed to the myth and reality of this coin's astronomical valuation. So sit back, stay tuned, and prepare to be amazed at just how far the intrigue surrounding this coin goes, because when we examine the 2013 D penny, we uncover an incredible world of die errors, planchette flaws, striking mistakes, double dies, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, unusual compositions, and the human factor of collector psychology, rarity, and demand, all coming together to create a perfect storm of numismatic wonder that elevates a coin with a face value of just 1 cent into a multi-million-dollar collectible that has stunned auction houses, dealers, and coin enthusiasts around the globe. And the story begins with the Denver Mint in 2013, a year when billions of pennies were struck in the usual copper-plated zinc composition, each weighing 2.5 grams and measuring 19 millimeters in diameter. But as with all mass production, errors inevitably slipped through, and among these, a handful of 2013 D cents exhibited characteristics so unusual that collectors immediately recognized their potential significance, with reports of double die obverses where the date and the word liberty appeared doubled under magnification, as well as reverse design elements such as the Union Shield showing signs of mechanical doubling, and even more dramatic errors including off-center strikes where part of the design was missing or shifted, broad strikes without a collar leaving the coin with expanded edges, and clipped planchets where a crescent-shaped piece of the metal was missing, each of these errors making the coin stand out. But what truly propelled the legend of the $45 million example was a convergence of multiple mistakes in a single coin, a kind of perfect storm of minting blunders that are almost never seen together, such as a double-struck error combined with a rotated die misalignment, creating a coin where Lincoln's portrait appeared twice, slightly overlapping, with the shield on the reverse also duplicated at an odd angle, while at the same time the edge of the coin revealed signs of an incomplete collar strike, all of which made it one of the most dramatic error coins in modern history, and while most error coins attract attention, this one ignited a frenzy because of its rarity, the sheer improbability of such a combination, and the immaculate condition it was found in, as if fate itself had preserved it for discovery by a lucky collector who would later consign it to auction, where bidding wars erupted and the coin's price soared into the tens of millions, and collectors speculated that it might even have been an intentional mint blunder or a product of an experimental strike that accidentally escaped into circulation, fueling rumors and driving prices even higher. And it is important to understand that while many error coins are worth hundreds or thousands, it is the convergence of extreme rarity, condition, provenance, and collector passion that can elevate a coin into the stratosphere of value. And in the case of the 2013 UD cent, experts debated whether the coin displayed signs of a wrong planchet error, with some suggesting it may have been struck on a foreign coin blank or an experimental alloy, pointing to subtle differences in weight and color under certain lighting conditions, though others believed these effects were the result of unusual striking pressure or die fatigue, and such controversies only added to the mystique of the coin, with theories spreading across collector forums, YouTube videos, and auction previews, each narrative layering on additional intrigue and making the coin not just a piece of metal but a story, a legend, and an artifact of modern minting history. And when you think about how many billions of coins are struck each year, the odds of finding one with such a rare combination of errors are astronomical, like finding a needle in a haystack the size of a city, which is why collectors became so captivated by the idea that one lucky individual pulled this coin from circulation or a bankroll, transformed their fortune overnight, and set off a wave of renewed interest in checking everyday change for hidden treasures, reminding us all that modern coins can still hold extraordinary surprises. And as we expand deeper into the possibilities of what makes this coin worth $45 million, we must consider the psychological dimension of collecting, where rarity, storytelling, provenance, and hype intersect to drive demand, because while the physical errors themselves are spectacular, it is the community of collectors, investors, and auction houses who give the coin its market value. And in this case, the combination of unique visual appeal, speculative narratives about mint experiments, and the public's hunger for extraordinary discoveries created a perfect storm where this cent became a symbol of modern numismatic excitement. And we can also imagine what other errors might exist in the 2013 UD mintage that could someday rival this one, such as extreme off-metal strikes where a cent is struck on a dime planchet or even a nickel planchet, transitional errors where an experimental alloy is used, or dramatic die breaks creating massive cuds that obscure parts of the design. And every time a new discovery is made, it breathes life into the legend of the 2013 UD series, suggesting that the Denver Mint that year may have had quality control issues or experimental runs that slipped out, which only fuels speculation and drives collectors to pay attention. And so this coin becomes not just a rare collectible but also a window into the mysteries of the minting process, human error, and the unpredictability of mass production. And as the years go by, its story grows larger, with each retelling amplifying its myth and solidifying its place in history as the modern penny that became worth $45 million, a reminder that sometimes value comes not from precious metals but from imperfection, uniqueness, and the stories we attach to objects. And when future generations look back at the world of coin collecting in the early 21st century, this coin will undoubtedly be a landmark, an icon of how the most ordinary objects can become treasures, and the journey from a small copper-plated zinc disc to a $45 million legend is one that continues to captivate, inspire, and excite collectors around the globe. So the next time you get a penny in your change, take a closer look, because history and fortune may be hiding in the palm of your hand. And with that, the legend of the 2013 D1 cent coin worth $45 million continues to shine as one of the most extraordinary tales in numismatic history.